Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back today again with another video. Today I am going to be going through what I would say are my top 10 NBA players of all time. To clarify, this means from the beginning of the NBA in 1948 until present. Uh, I did include potential current players on my list. Even if a guy hasn't retired yet, I still find him eligible for this list as long as he's played, a couple of seasons. Like a rookie, I would not put on this list, but uh, guys who played a substantial amount of time, I was willing to rank on here. I have a few honorable mentions before we get into it, but just to clarify real quick again, the the way that I quantified who's better than who is basically looking at um, accolades throughout their career. This could be All-Star Game selections, MVP awards, All NBA team selections, All Defensive team selections, uh, awards such as Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, all stuff like that. So you got accolades, and then I included like winning, like how well they did, like how many championships they won essentially, and then I also looked at numbers. So uh, like if a guy was a 10-time All-Star, but his career numbers were like 14 and 8, like Al Horford, then I don't know how much that means compared to Kareem averaging 30 and 11. So I did look at statistics to help. Um, Evaluate how good a player was and what he could give you on a night to night basis. So to start off, I have a few honorable mentions, and those would be Jerry West, Oscar Robertson, and then Hakeem Olajuwon. Those are the three guys who I basically really strongly considered putting in the top 10, but I just couldn't ultimately put them above anybody. Hakeem was definitely the one that I really thought I was going to somehow get in the top 10, and just by looking at it, I can't really knock anybody off the list. My number 10 guy, I kind of considered knocking down for Hakeem, but ultimately he stayed on the list. But yeah, so I'd say in that order, Jerry West is like my 13, Oscar Robertson is like my 12, and then Hakeem is my 11. I really wanted to put him in the top 10 because I really like him a lot. I really admire him winning the two championships in Jordan's absence. I think he's a dominant player who is actually quite underrated. I feel like his history tells it. We always think of like uh, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Bill Russell, and Shaq, and I feel like Hakeem kind of gets forgotten, but he's right there, shoulder to shoulder with any of them, in my opinion. Either way, let's get into our top 10. So at number 10, I have a guy who is very quiet and also may sometimes get forgotten, which is Tim Duncan. Just to go through some of his career accolades real quick. He is a two-time MVP. He's a 15-time All-Star. He got to the All-NBA first team 10 times, the All-NBA second team 3 times, the All-NBA third team 2 times. He's an 8-time All-NBA first team defender. He's a 7-time All-NBA defensive second team member, so quite a few selections. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1998. He's a 3-time Finals MVP, having won 5 championships, and his career numbers are 19 points a game, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists a game. So Tim Duncan, the real reason I have him here above Hakeem is that really the winning. I believe that Hakeem may be as talented, if not more talented, than Tim Duncan, but Tim Duncan has the 5 championships to Hakeem's 2, and Tim Duncan was a critical piece in all of those championships, and I really can't justify um, Hakeem getting in with the 2 championships over Duncan's 5. Uh, Now, I often make this argument with Tim Duncan that you could kind of like plug anybody into San Antonio and they might perform the same. I can't say without a doubt that Garnett, Nowitzki, Karl Malone, uh, Hakeem Olajuwon, you plug any of those guys in, Charles Barkley, to Greg Popovich's system and they don't produce the same thing. They may very well, but it just so happens that Tim Duncan was the guy that ended up going to the Spurs and having those great seasons. So he is firmly at my number 10 spot. At number 9, I have a guy who it's kind of the opposite of Tim Duncan in that he really is much more of a stats guy than an accolades guy, in my opinion, which would be Wilt Chamberlain. So to go through here, Wilt Chamberlain is a 13-time All-Star, 4-time NBA MVP. He is a 7-time All-NBA first team member, 3 times on the All-NBA second team. He's on the All-NBA first defensive team 3 times. He was the Rookie of the Year in 1960. He's a 7-time scoring champ, an 11-time rebounding champ. He 1-time led the NBA in assists in 1968. He has a 1-time or 2-time, champion, once with Philadelphia and then once with the Lakers. He's a 1-time Finals MVP, which he was with the Lakers. His career numbers are 30 points a game, 23 rebounds a game, and 4 assists a game. So unlike Duncan, Wilt Chamberlain's kind of on the other end of the spectrum, like really racked up a lot of stats, but didn't really win that many championships, only 2, which you might say, well, Hakeem only won 2, so why don't you put him on this list? But Wilt's stats are just so overwhelming compared to even Hakeem's. With the 30 points and 23 rebounds a night, you can't really argue with it. Leading the league in scoring and rebounding so many times. He also has 3 more MVPs than Hakeem ever did. 2 more MVPs than Duncan did. Honestly, Wilt Chamberlain was a force of nature, and it really might be because he was a 7-footer amongst centers who were primarily like 6'8", so he had a very distinct size advantage against a lot of people. But I think that you could still put him into the 90s and he'd be a really good center, like an all-star caliber center. And I think he's essentially what Shaq would have been in the 60s, is what we got in Wilt Chamberlain. And I think he would have won a lot more championships if not for the Boston Celtics having like an starting lineup of 5 all-stars, whereas Wilt only ever had himself, and then towards the end of his career, Jerry West and Elgin Baylor too. But they were all pretty much past their primes by the time they all teamed up. But yeah, Wilt Chamberlain, basically the epitome of a stat stuffer, and he did win 2 championships, but if he would have won, say, 5, he would be a lot higher on this list to me. Next on this list at number 8, I have Kobe Bryant. Kobe, for his career, let's see here, all 20 seasons with the Lakers. He is a 1-time NBA MVP, an 18-time All-Star, 11 times on the All-NBA first team, 2 times on the second team, 2 times on the third team. He is a 9-time All-NBA defensive first team member, a 3-time All-NBA defensive second team member. He is twice a scoring champion of the NBA. He won the dunk contest in 1997. He was a 4-time All-Star Game MVP. He was a 2-time NBA Finals MVP and a 5-time NBA champion. So he has 5 rings to his name. His career statistics are 25 points a game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. So basically what you get in Kobe Bryant is just a slightly lesser version of Michael Jordan. I think the thing that hurts Kobe's career and why he's not right next to Michael Jordan on this list for me is it's something that really shouldn't hurt him, but it does, and that's the Shaq thing. I think because he played with Shaq, it's hard to put him in like a top 5 slot because you could say on 3 of his championship teams he was the second best player. Now again, you could argue he was the best player on those teams. I'd say at least for 2 out of those 3 he was not the best player. Maybe in 2002 when they won it, you could say that he was better than Shaq, but I would say like the year 2000, 2001, Shaq was better, and then 2002 they were like equal, but I still wouldn't call Kobe better. And then basically without Shaq, he only ever won 2 championships, which is kind of low for an all-time great. It's because, they couldn't really get anybody in Shaq's place who was super great, but still, like if he would have won 3 or 4 on his own without Shaq, I would probably put him in a top 3 slot on here. But because he only won 2 without Shaq, I'm I'm putting him a little bit farther down, which may seem unfair. I completely understand that, but it's just the way I see things. But he's a guy who had one of the highest scoring averages ever in a season with, I think, 35 points a game, yeah, in 2006. And in 2007, he averaged 32 points a game. So never can it be said that Kobe Bryant could not fill up the box score. Um, One-time NBA MVP seems really too little for him. He should have more MVPs, in my opinion. He should be the MVP in 2006 when he averaged 35 points a game, if you ask me. But he didn't get it. Uh, I still find him to be an all-time great, though. He's the guy that I just hated his guts when I would be watching him play, just because he was always on the Lakers and I didn't enjoy them much. I liked the Celtics better back when I was watching them 10 years ago, but you gotta respect him. He is an all-timer. Okay, so let's see here. Number 7 on my list, I believe. Yep, number 7. That would be Shaquille O'Neal, who is the teammate of the guy I was just talking about. So his career accolades are that he is a one-time NBA MVP, which is, by the way too little. He should be like a 3 or 4-time NBA MVP, but he just got a bad deal because just the way the voting worked, especially with Steve Nash. If Steve Nash didn't explode in Phoenix, we could be saying that Shaq's a 3-time MVP, but it just didn't work out that way. He's a 15-time All-Star, a 3-time All-Star Game MVP, 8 times on the All-NBA first team, 2 times on the All-NBA second team, and 4 times on the All-NBA third team. He's an 3-time All-NBA defensive second team selection, so not as great of a defender. 1993 Rookie of the Year. He's a 2-time scoring champion. 4-time NBA MVP with a 3-time as a Finals MVP. Or let's see here, excuse me. 4-time NBA champion, not 4-time MVP. He's a 4-time NBA champion, and he's got 3 Finals MVPs. He won the 3 with Kobe, obviously, and then in 2006, between him and Dwayne Wade, he won another title. So those are where the 4 titles came from. His career numbers are 24 points a game, along with 11 rebounds and 2 blocks a game. Everyone says it, but I'm just going to tack on and say it as well. He is the most dominant player in NBA history. There is actually no stopping him unless you foul him to get him to the free throw line on every single play, because that is his one weakness, his free throw shooting. But besides that, if you just give him the ball in the low post, he's going to score on you unless you send a huge guy at him just to hack him and get him to the line. That's the only weakness of his game, is free throw shooting. People often forget Shaq's play in Orlando when he was a ball handler and he could frequently bring the ball up the court and start the fast break for the Magic. I'm trying to think of how I would describe him. He played it sort of like Joel Embiid when he was with the Magic. That's who I would say he was. He was like a faster Joel Embiid and like an equal ball handler to him. Really good. Obviously, he led the Magic to the finals in '95, and they lost, but a really great team. And if you haven't watched the documentary on that team, you should definitely go ahead and watch it. It's really cool. Shaq's a huge personality. Obviously, everyone knows he's really funny and lighthearted and kind of charismatic in that way. And really, just he's for his best years. You look at let's look at some of his scoring averages for the bulk of his prime, which I guess I'm going to call his prime from 1992 until basically 2006. I'm going to just read off his scoring averages real quick here during those years. 23, 29, 29, 27, 26, 28, 26, 30, 29, 27, 28, 22, 23, 20. So you look at even between 93 and 03, he averages no less than 26 points a game, between 26 and 30 every year, which is astounding. Yeah, so he's a guy who, if he just would have put in a little more hard work over his career, he could be like a 4-time MVP and like a 6-time champion. But still, he's probably got some of the most God-given ability of any NBA player ever, just between his skills, his footwork, his ability to maneuver the low post, and of course his body and figure. All of those, just probably some of the most God-given ability ever of any NBA player. Moving on to number 6, I have the Hick from French Lick. Yes, it's Larry Bird. To go through, hit some accolades real quick. 3-time NBA MVP, back-to-back 84, 85, 86. 12-time All-Star, 1-time All-Star Game MVP, 9-time All-NBA First Team, once on the All-NBA Second Team, 3 times on the All-NBA Defensive Second Team, Rookie of the Year in 1980, 3-time three-point contest winner, 3-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP, career averages of 24 points a game, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. So he sort of did it all for you. I think people remember him as a great player, but I think younger people don't realize that he was basically like a better Kevin Durant, which seems kind of crazy to think about, but he was basically like Kevin Durant with more attitude and confidence on the court, and a better rebounder, better playmaker, and he had a dynamite three-point shot as well. For his career, his shot from three-point land was, let's see here, 38%. His best season from three-point land, he shot 43%. He's just an astounding player. His best season, you'd say he averaged 29, 11 rebounds a game, and 7 assists, which is astounding, along with 2 steals a game and a block a game, which is, again, pretty astounding to me. Yeah, he just is a phenomenal player. The 1986 Celtics, you could argue, is the best NBA team of all time. I know some people would. I would say it's right up there, and you can't really argue against it. Obviously, he was the leader of that team. He was the MVP that season, the Finals MVP. In the playoffs that year, let's see here, what did he average? In the playoffs that year, he averaged 26, 9, and 8. Shooting 52% from the field, 41% from 3, 93% from the free throw line. Can't argue with it. The only knock against Larry Bird, he had a relatively short career. He only played from, I think, 1979 to 92, so only 13 seasons. So I don't know. That's the one knock against him, is that he had a really short prime. He entered the league at 23, so he was a little bit older to enter the league, but he was out of it by about 35. So I don't know, just to me a relatively short prime, and that probably bumps him down a little bit on here. Also, when you're getting up here, he only has 3 championships, which is equal to or less than anyone else on this list going forward. So he's in at number 6. Number 5, I have another fellow Celtic who some people might argue is too low on this list, but I just put him here just because of a few factors I'll talk about, which is Bill Russell. Going through his career numbers real quick, he is a 5-time NBA MVP, which is a huge number, 12-time All-Star, 1-time All-Star Game MVP, 3 times on the All-NBA First Team, 8 times on the All-NBA Second Team. He made All-NBA First Team once, but that's because it was a relatively new thing when he was going into the league. He's a 4-time rebounding champ, an 11-time NBA champion. They didn't have Finals MVP when he played, so that's not part of it. But 11-time NBA champion. Let's see here. His career statistics are 15 points a game, along with 23 rebounds a game and 4 assists a game. Some would consider him the best defensive player in NBA history. He's also basically the inventor of the block, which is swatting a player's shot. 11-time champion, so you can't argue with the winning. He's the winningest player in NBA history, so he's obviously firmly in the top 10. The thing that holds him back for me is that there's 8 teams in the league when he was playing, so like basically if you're a good team, it's far easier to win an NBA title. Also at this time, really his only competition was Wilt Chamberlain, and basically Bill Russell had a team of 6 Hall of Fame players, and Wilt had a team of himself and maybe like one other All-Star at the time. So Bill Russell always had the best team, even besides himself in the league, so it made it a little bit easier. But something that might be deceptive is that he only made 3 All-NBA first teams compared to Wilt Chamberlain making much more. Bill Russell made 8 All-NBA second teams. Something that's sort of interesting is that there are a few seasons in which he won MVP, but he was on the All-NBA second team, which is pretty crazy. But that just shows how good Wilt Chamberlain was as well, and how statistics, Wilt Chamberlain just racking up the stats can sort of blind people to Bill Russell's effect on the court. But either way, Bill Russell, a phenomenal player, winning tons of championships and 5 MVPs, which is also astounding. And so he's squarely in our number 5 spot. So now number 4, this is where I would say we're moving up into the category, or I would say with Bill Russell, we basically got into the category where you could kind of argue any of these top 5 guys could be in any order. Even some people would say Larry Bird should be in that conversation for the GOAT. But I'd say whatever fan you are, probably between Larry and this number 1 spot that I have, you're going to say that you could rearrange those guys, those 6 in any order. But this is the order I got them in. So at number 4 on the Mount Rushmore of the NBA, I have Magic Johnson, who is a 3-time NBA MVP. He is a 12-time All-Star, 2-time All-Star Game MVP, 9 times on the All-NBA first team, once on the All-NBA second team. He's a 4-time assist leader, a 2-time steals leader. He is a 5-time NBA champion, a 3-time NBA Finals MVP. Again, another pretty short career. He only played for 12 and a half seasons because he played 1 comeback year in 1996, so about a half a season. But he played 13 seasons, essentially 12 to 13, depending on how you see it. So again, a relatively short career because he retired early because of the AIDS scare. But that wasn't really an injury. He really could have kept playing, but he didn't. He retired really young. He retired, let's see here, at about 30. He retired about 31 years old, which is astounding. That'd be like if LeBron had retired after his first year back in Cleveland, really. So that's really crazy to think about, to me at least. Or actually, no, it would be like if LeBron retired after. Let's see here. If LeBron retired after he won the title with Cleveland, that would be like as long as Magic's career was, like when he was 31. So pretty crazy to think about. But again, 3-time NBA MVP, career numbers of 20 points a game, 7 rebounds, and 11 assists a game, which is really crazy. Magic Johnson is the reason why the Showtime Lakers were a thing. He was a magician with the ball. That's why they called him Magic, because just the way he played was magic. Now, I will say he had about the most talented supporting cast of any player ever, with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy. At other times, he had Byron Scott, Norm Nixon, Bob McAdoo, Jamal Wilkes. So he had no shortage of talent around him. And some people may say that he should be lower on the list even because he had so many great players. So it's better to win. It's easier to win a lot and look good when you have a ton of great players around you. But nevertheless, he proved his worth on the court, being a 5-time champion, winning Finals MVP as a rookie, which is astounding. Playing center in the NBA Finals and winning MVP when he was a point guard, which is astounding. Another argument people say about Magic is because he was 6'9" and playing point guard, it was easier for him to play against small point guards. I think that that's true to an extent, but if that's really a problem, other teams should just play their really good players, or like they should just put their small forward onto Magic and have their point guard guarding the shooting guard and adjust that way. But nobody ever did that really against him, so he could take advantage of it. The only team that ever really did that was the Bulls in the 91 finals when they put Scottie Pippen on Magic, and then they kind of adjusted everybody over, like having Jordan guard James Worthy then, and then they had B.J. Armstrong guard Byron Scott. That was one of the major examples of a team doing that, but besides that, he always got guarded by smaller guys, which helped him perform better. But again, still, he's an amazing player. Now we're getting to the top 3. At the number 3 spot on this list, I have LeBron James, who, okay, I get it. Some people don't like him. Some people love him. It's controversial to put him this high, possibly. But I think it's undeniable if you watch the NBA today, you realize how good he is. He's a 4-time NBA MVP, 14-time All-Star, three-time All-Star Game MVP, 12 times on the All-NBA first team, 2 times on the All-NBA second team. He, let's see here. What was I saying here? He is a 5-time All-NBA defensive first team person, once on the All-NBA second defensive team. He's the Rookie of the Year in 2004. He is a 3-time champion, a 3-time Finals MVP. He's a scoring champion in 2008. Let's see here. For career numbers, I gotta go. Let's see. Career numbers: 27 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 7 assists a game, 2 steals, a block a game. Really impressive. He's the guy that can basically do it all for you. Score, assist, rebound. He can do whatever you need. The only thing is his major weakness as a player, doesn't have a great 3-point shot, and again doesn't have a great free throw shot. But besides that, he's unstoppable. I always like to call him Magic Johnson's skill set with Karl Malone's body. Or you could just say he's the exact combination of Karl Malone and Magic Johnson. He's got the scoring of Malone, but the distribution of Johnson. He kind of blends their games really well. And that's just how I would describe him. He's got a little bit of that like Jordan to him too, just because Jordan was his idol as a kid. But he elevates the play of his teams wherever he goes. When he went to Cleveland initially, their win totals went way high up after him coming there. Miami, they went from a first-round playoff team to an NBA Finals contender. Cleveland, they went from 24 wins to 53, I believe. Something roughly like that, not exact per se, but really pretty close to that. And then Los Angeles, they won 35 games this year. Or last year, excuse me, and this year they're on pace to win roughly 50, I believe. So wherever he goes, he seems to elevate the team, and he is not always a super easy guy to play with, but he is usually the smart. I would say basically always the smartest guy on the court, and I would say you can never count out your team with him. He's beaten some really impressive teams in his career, like the 2013 Spurs. That Thunder team with Westbrook, Durant, and Harden was really good, and then obviously the Golden State dynasty. You could say he beat the best team ever in the NBA Finals. Like he beat the best team to ever lose an NBA Finals. It's a hard way to phrase it, but they are the best team to have ever lost in the finals, and he's the guy that beat them. So I don't think you can ever count him out of a game. Now, number 2 on this list, extremely, extremely controversial. But at number 2 on this list, I have Michael Jordan. All right, let's get into it. Michael Jordan. 6-time NBA or 5-time NBA MVP, 14-time All-Star, 3-time Finals or NBA All-Star Game MVP, 10 times on the All-NBA first team, once on the All-NBA second team, Defensive Player of the Year in 1988, 9 times on the All-NBA defensive first team. He's the Rookie of the Year in 85. He's a 10-time scoring champion, led the league in steals 3 times, won the dunk contest twice. He's a NBA champion 6 times, 6-0, of course, winning 6 rings. And he is a 6-time Finals MVP. His career statistics are 30 points a game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists a game. What can you really say besides he is a phenomenal player, kind of perfect Finals record, really unstoppable for most of his career. One knock I've got on him is that he actually had a very short career. He played the solid 9 years from 84 to 93. And then after that, he played the three-peat with the Bulls, 95 to 98. And then you got the half season with the Bulls, which I guess I'll count that. So that's up to 13 seasons. And then you got the 2 throwaway seasons with Washington, where he was washed up and basically just playing to get more people interested in the team and sell more tickets. and have them not be a total bottom dweller. So he played 15 seasons, but really only 12 prime seasons. And 12 prime seasons, that's pretty short. But again, he decided to take off time for baseball, which was a very peculiar decision. I would have wished he would have stayed and played the whole time. I wish that Mike. Okay, so we were seeing in 2002 to 2003 that Michael Jordan still had enough to put up 20 points a game and be a pretty respectable, decent NBA player. I wish we would have seen Michael Jordan play straight through from 84 to 03. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see that. He should have played 19 seasons, is what I'm saying. But instead, he retired twice. He played a half season in 94 to 95. I just wish he would have played the whole time. It would have just been so much better. He could have gone to another team after 98 with the Bulls if he would have wanted. There's plenty of teams that would have taken him. Um, woulda, shoulda, coulda. But the only knock for me for Jordan is that he had a relatively short career for him and for how people remember him. He really had 12 seasons, I would say. Last, but certainly not least, obviously not least, is a man by the name of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who I am putting in the number one slot. Now, best player of all time. This includes both being the best talented player, like the most talented player, along with the best career. Let me read off some numbers for you here. He is a 6-time NBA MVP, more than anyone else on this list. He's a 19-time All-Star, more than anybody else on this list. He is a 10-time All-NBA first team member, 5 times on the All-NBA second team, 5 times on the All-NBA defensive first team, 6 times on the All-NBA defensive second team, Rookie of the Year in 1970, 2-time NBA scoring champion. He's an NBA rebounding champion, 4-time leader of the NBA in blocks. Let's see here. His career numbers are 25 points a game, 11 rebounds a game, 3 blocks a game. He is a 6-time NBA champion, 2-time Finals MVP. Okay, so here's essentially my argument with Kareem being better than Jordan, which I know a lot of people are going to be upset with. But here it is. Kareem is a 6-time champion, same as Michael. He's got 1 more MVP than Michael. He's got 5 more All-Star game selections than Michael. He basically just has a longevity argument. I'd say they're, like, for who they were, how dominant they were in their respective eras, in their respective positions, I'd say they were about equal in dominance. Kareem has the most unstoppable shot in NBA history, the skyhook. He is the all-time NBA scoring leader, most points ever scored of any NBA player. He's equal to Jordan in rings. The only thing that Jordan's got over him is Finals MVPs. Kareem with 2 and Jordan with 6. But Kareem wasn't a slouch in any of the years he won a title either. Okay, so let's see here. In the first title year, he scored 27 points a game in the playoffs, along with 17 rebounds. The next title in 1980, he was scoring 32 a game with 12 rebounds. In 82, he was scoring 20 a game with 9 rebounds. 85, he was scoring 22 and 8. 87, he was scoring, let's see here, 19 and 7. And then the last year, you could say he fell off a little bit. He was scoring 14 and 6. But still, this guy was astounding to me. He had a season where he put up 32 points a game, another season where he put up 35, another where he put up 30, another 30.1. Then he had a 28.1, 27.1, 29.1. The man averaged 17 rebounds a game one season. And that's not even out of the ordinary if you look at his statistics, really. He had another season in which he averaged another 17 rebounds a game, 16, 16, 15, 15, 14, 13, 13, 13, 11. I'm just reading off some of the years of his rebounding statistics. Blocks per game, he has a season with 4, a season with 3, a season with 4, 3, 3, 4, 3, 3, 3. And that's even with a few of the seasons of his career with no one recording steals, by the way. Yeah, so I can't wholly convince anybody that Kareem's better, but I think as far as talent and domination of an era, he dominated his era as much as Michael dominated his. The difference to me is that he had more longevity. He's got one more MVP award. He's got 5 more All-Star game selections than Jordan. Um, he's an equal champion to him. The Finals MVP. I guess you could argue that he is worse than Jordan because of that. You could try and make that argument, but I would come back with you could argue in some of the years he didn't win it, he deserved it. Like you could say in 1980 he should have won it when he was averaging 32 and 12 in the playoffs, or 82 he was averaging 20 and 9. You could make an argument he deserved it then. He won it in 85, so he still was really good. 1986 when he was in the playoffs. Let's see here, how old would he have been then? 86 to now, that's 32 years. So he was 39 years old at the time. In the playoffs, when he was 39 years old, he averaged 26 and 6 a game, which is astounding. At 39, averaging 26 points a game on 56% shooting from the field. That's really impressive. To me, Kareem's the GOAT, and I can't say anything against him on it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. It was a really long one, but I had to discuss every player in a good amount of detail. And again, sorry if it's too long for you, but hope you enjoy it. Have a good day. Bye.